we're all bounded together. We're doing a great work in the world. I mean, our work, our mission in the world, in fact, one way to think of, to characterize this problem of being in the box is to have what we call an inward mindset. You get very self-focused, right? Self-worried and closed off from others. The solution to that is to figure out how to burst out of that through what we call an outward mindset. And our mission is really to turn the world outward.
We're all about turning a crappy situation into something positive.
$250,000 of credit card debt.
I still remember the day when no one turned up.
Throw it in the garbage and start from scratch.
I could give myself a chance, so I started something.
I mean, I think that counts as from poop to gold.
Our sponsor for this episode is our 14-day video script challenge.
Yes, we are sponsoring our own show.
Yes, we are.
Welcome back to From Poop to Gold. I'm your co-host, Benton Crane. Today I am joined by Jim Ferrell, managing partner of the Arbinger Institute. Welcome to the show, Jim.
It's great being here. Thanks, Ben.
Now, the Arbinger Institute has had a pretty big impact on our organization, Harmon Brothers, because they are the author of the book, Leadership and Self-Deception. And at Harmon Brothers, Leadership and Self-Deception is mandatory reading.
That's fantastic.
Every employee who comes here reads Leadership and Self-Deception because it lays a foundation for how to interact one with another that allows us to have really hard conversations, but do it in such a way that we're not offending each other. We're not, the title, self-deception. We're trying to have those conversations in a frame of mind where we're not self-deceived.
Right.
But I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim. Give us the elevator pitch of what Arbinger is, and tell us a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive into your backstory and find out your
awesome.
poop to gold journey.
So look, I'll tell you what Arbinger is in the context of this book.
Sure.
So there's this issue that's existed, well, since the beginning of time, I suppose, but over the last century and a half or so, it's been labeled as what's known as the problem of self-deception or the paradox of self-deception. And Arbinger came out of the scholarly work that figured out what is self-deception, how does it happen, how do you explain it, and then what do you do about it? And if you think just sort of colloquially about what the problem of self-deception is, it's really a two-part problem. It's the problem of not knowing and resisting the possibility that I have a problem, right? It's more than just not knowing. Because if you and I are working together, for example, Benton, and you realize, man, Jim's got issues. He's got a real problem. Well, if the problem I have is just that I don't know I have a problem, then the solution is you just tell me. But of course, when you tell me, typically what happens is I push back and resist, right?
Defenses, right?
Yeah.
Build a wall.
Yeah, and that's the resist solution part of it. And so it turns out, although Arbinger's work is the solution to that problem, it's a scholarly work in its foundations, in its history. We become a company of really some real impact in the world, really because this issue, the problem of self-deception, it's everywhere. I mean, wherever you gather people, you'll have people, all of us, myself included, we all get ourselves in this place we use a metaphor of the box for what it's like to be in this problem of self-deception. We get cut off from others, we close ourselves off, we're blaming everything outside and all of that. And so you just find that everywhere. And what we find in our work is you can't really get traction to solve the problems you're dealing with.
That's right.
Unless people who are in the middle of helping to cause those open themselves up to the possibility that they might be causing them, at least to some degree, right? So we help organizations to crack that and to then lay on solutions above it. Now, with your audience here, a lot of creative folks and whatnot, this is a really big deal because one of the aspects of this box of self-deception is that we get self-concerned, right? We get very self-focused, and we end up objectifying people, blaming, they become objects of our blame. And that's a really lousy place from which to be creative, right? Because your best ideas, they get drawn out of you when you're actually seeing people. You're seeing their real issues and their real possibilities. And so for the whole creative project, getting locked in this box is just a downer. It kills you. And so I think our work, and maybe you found that here in your place here, it unlocks people's ability to actually connect and get better ideas.
For us, it's, our audience is pretty familiar with our creative process where, these ads that we develop and the scripts behind them and the concepts behind them, they're very, very collaborative creative processes. And what we found is that if I am in the box type mindset
Yeah.
where I'm self-deceived and I'm thinking that that I'm not the problem, everyone else is the problem, then when I go into the creative process, I tend to be kind of defensive. And when I see other people trying to poke holes in my ideas, normally that's an opportunity to strengthen the idea,
right,
and to further develop it. But if I'm in the box, instead I'm getting defensive.
Yeah, it's a personal attack.
Yeah.
What, you think I'm smart? You don't think I'm creative? Don't have an imagination? Right.
Yeah, quit attacking my ideas. I can have a good idea once in a while. Like, back off.
Yeah.
But the reality is,
yeah,
all of that pushback, that's healthy.
Absolutely. That's how you arrive at something that's actually fantastic. Everyone collaboratively helping. Yeah, exactly.
Now, before we dive into your backstory, though, Jim, tell us, where does the name Arbinger come from?
So Arbinger, you know the word harbinger, like a harbinger of things to come?
Okay.
It's that word without the H.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just and so I think really, and this speaks, I think it speaks both to our content, what our work is in the world, and to the people who are involved in it. Our founder, who was a philosopher named Terry Warner, he could have named the organization he was founding after himself, but he didn't. He called it Arbinger, and so it's really, in our view, it's that our work isn't even about ourselves. It's like the creative process. Our work is to help. It's a path to something that people need to discover for themselves. So it's a forerunner to creativity, for example, to the results you want to do. It unlocks the possibilities. So I really love it as a name. It's kind of a cool word anyway, but I love it for its meaning because it's kind of humble in its way. It's saying, look, don't focus on us. Don't even focus on our ideas per se. Let them be catalysts that get you out of the places where you're stuck so you can do the work, you need to be doing in the world, whether it's creative work that you're up to or whether, we work all over the world. We have offices in 30 countries now. And so working with, the largest corporations in the world, governments all around the world. I mean, how do you help those folks get after their missions and their objectives, more collaboratively, more successfully? And it's equally true there as it is in the creative process.
And we know that you're a successful person, and every successful person has had their poop to gold moments, right? You've overcome some pretty serious stuff. So tell us a little bit about your journey to get where you're at today.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, Ben, when you put it that way. It's interesting in the nature of our work at Arbinger because what we're trying to do is awaken people. Well, one of the things we're trying to do is awaken people to where they might be mistaken, where they might be helping to create trouble that they haven't been aware that they are.
It's this idea of I'm self-deceived, but I don't know I'm self-deceived. And you're trying to spark something inside of me to ask myself, wait, am I self-deceived?
No, that's exactly right. And the key for me, I think this is the biggest, at least in the context of my work, the biggest thing is that has to apply first to me. I can write about these things. I can speak about these things really first and foremost because I'm in the box a lot. I have a lot of experience with it. So I've learned how to recognize it. And all of us at Arbinger, when we're working with all of our clients, it's the same thing. Partly what we do is we tell stories on ourselves. In fact, I'll tell you an interesting story. So before I was doing this, I was a lawyer. I was at one of the big law firms in the world. And I got reconnected to my mentor, who was the founder of Arbinger. A few of his former students he reconnected with, and we all left our careers.
Which, by the way, he's
together.
also one of Daniel. So my partner, Daniel Harmon, Terry Warner is also one of his mentors.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Okay. Similar story then. So when I was still practicing law, and I came and spent a week with Terry and a few other people, just kind of getting deeper into the ideas. And I'd studied them for over a decade at that point. But at one point, Terry, I think it was maybe on lunch one day, he puts his arm around me. He says, "Hey, Jim," he says, "you're just sick enough to be here." That's what he said. Which was his way of saying, you've got this problem too, don't you? And so the trick is learning how to talk about it. And in fact, so when I decided, I'm leaving the law and this is what I'm going to do, and I asked him, I said, "So Terry, what should I do to prepare for this?" And he said, "Well, one thing." Now I thought if it's going to be one thing, it's going to be a very sort of long one thing. So I get out my pen, I'm ready to take notes, and he said, "What you need to do is ponder your life. That's what you need to do."
That's really concrete.
Yeah, exactly. And that meant, turn over all the rocks in your life, question every story you've been telling yourself. Get more truthful about yourself so that you can be a catalyst in the world that's helpful for other people being able to do the same things. Because if I'm just really good at blaming other people, then I'm working with groups, and what I'm fundamentally doing is blaming others. That's what I'm going to be teaching everyone else to do. I won't be aware that that's what I am, but that's what they'll get. They're gonna get who I'm being, and if who I'm being is running from responsibility, then I'm going to invite them to run too. So we're about, very much our work awakens people, starting with ourselves, to what we're up to, what we have been up to, and taking much higher levels of accountability to, show up differently with each other, apologize where we need to, become more helpful where we've been getting in the way, all of that.
Now, what was that jump in your career like? Was that a scary jump?
From the law?
Yeah, to go from successful career in law to, hey, I'm totally shifting gears.
It's funny because on the surface, it should be terrifying. Terrifying because, I was just, right, everything's set up in front of you, you see, but I guess it's terrifying in two directions. A legal practice, look, a lot of people really thrive in it and love it, and other people get in and go, do I want to do this for all of my life?
I want to read and write contracts
exactly.
all day, every day.
So and I was kind of like that. I'd come home after work every night and, work really hard and everything, you have to, but I couldn't shake this feeling that what I was doing was fungible. If I wasn't sitting at that desk doing what I did that day, someone would have been, and it would have been about as good. In terms of difference in the world, I don't think it would have made a measurable difference. There was something that just kept, to me, it was like, no, I don't want, there's got to be something more than that.
Up inside of you.
Yeah, there was. And this is, working this work is what I would have wanted to do anyway, even coming out of my undergraduate times. There just wasn't an opportunity then, unless you're going to be a professor of philosophy, which I almost went and did because the ideas themselves are so fascinating. But I didn't do that. Ultimately, I went to law school, which had been my plan. So when this opportunity came up, when Terry and I started talking, and he talked with some of his other former students, really, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was my passion. It was absolutely. Now, having said that, at the time, Arbinger was an amazing idea, and with intellectual property that, in my view, is unrivaled in the world, but there weren't clients. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like we lived for a couple of years out of savings accounts and faith.
That's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not easy.
What was that like for your family?
Well, it was harder for my wife for sure. We moved up from San Diego on January 1st. So we're leaving 70-degree weather, driving into a snowstorm.
We're here in Utah where it's freezing in January, right?
And we had an amazing life there, great friend. Everything about it was pretty ideal. So I think it was really hard for her. For me, those aspects were difficult, but I was plugging into what felt like my mission, my personal sort of what I should be about, and that part was exciting.
Is lighting a fire inside of you.
Absolutely, no question. Yeah.
What about for your kids? How old were your kids at the time?
So our oldest at the time was 2. This is a long time ago.
Yep.
So 2 years old. So he didn't know any better.
So the biggest impact was on your wife.
For sure.
You're taking her from this nice, stable, warm community in San Diego and saying, let's go move
in a secure career and all of that. Yeah.
Let's take this risk. We're going to be living out of savings.
Yeah.
Let's tighten
Doesn't that sound great? Yeah. And our parents, I think, were scratching their heads a little bit, but they could tell, no, actually, I think everyone around us could tell that this is right. This is a good thing for them to be doing. And one way or another, it's going to work. And that's what all of us, the early ones at Arbinger, we all knew this was going to work because there was nothing like it in the world. We just had to figure out how to talk about it more helpfully. We couldn't talk about it philosophically really anymore. We had to figure out how do you get really practical with people. And we've gotten over the years just better and better and better at doing that. In fact, Leadership and Self-Deception is a funny story because it came out originally in 2000. We just felt like we needed to have a book. And so we thought, well, what the heck? Let's try a book. Mm-hmm. And our publisher loved the book. But of course, a couple of weird things about it. First of all, we were completely unknown at the time.
Yep.
Second of all, who publishes as an organization? I mean, that just, and it's a bit ironic given our work is so much about connecting with people as people, and here it's written by some impersonal kind of organization. So it had those two, what you might think is, at least at the front end, strikes against the success of it. But this book, it's something about it. Maybe it's happened in your company as well. It just caught fire. So I think their first print run was like 6,000 copies, which is kind of a dipping a toe in the water as a publisher. Like, we like it, but we need an exit ramp.
Right.
Right.
Which, by the way, aren't you up to like 2.5 million?
Yeah, 2.5 million. We're probably getting close to 3 million now on this now. So yeah, I mean, it was within a month they were going to a second printing. I mean, it struck a chord.
Connects.
And I think the ideas are arresting. I mean, they just are. This one's also written as a story, and I think that people recognize themselves in the story. I don't know if you've had experience, right?
It's an easy read.
Yeah.
If you are reading it on a road trip as an audiobook, I think it's what, 3.5, 4 hours or something like that. And because it's written as a story, it's a narrative that just keeps you moving forward as it's teaching you these really important principles that, at least for us, have been foundational to our creative culture and our creative processes.
That's fantastic. Love hearing that.
Okay, so one more question about this backstory. So you guys have moved up to Utah. You're about to embark on this journey of living off of savings for a couple of years before this, kind of takes off and becomes profitable. Was there any moment along that path where, the money's running thin, the success hasn't quite kicked in yet, where you're just sitting here going, what next? Like, what?
Absolutely. I can point you to a specific moment.
Okay, let's go there.
So we had there was a really large company that had put out an RFP, a request for proposal, and a whole bunch of companies in our general industry they put in their proposals.
So request for proposal meaning they want to hire somebody to help them.
So they want a bunch of companies to throw in their own proposals in response. And so we did. Now, look, we were a total unknown at that point, completely unknown. And the only reason we'd been invited is someone who was a former student had studied these ideas, somehow had gotten the word in that, hey, this is an organization maybe that should be given a chance as well.
So someone knows someone.
Yeah, someone knew someone. So we put in our proposal.
And if you guys win this proposal, I imagine this is a pretty big deal.
It's life-changing. This is a huge deal.
Okay.
So we put everything, all of our own creative juices in it, and we put everything we had. And it was August when we finished. I can't remember what day in August, but it was in August. And
was this a several week process?
This was several month process.
Okay. Got it. So you've been putting months of work into trying to win this contract.
Yes.
Got it.
So at this point, just to write the initial proposal, I mean, on the other side of that, there's still work to do because they narrow it down to a final 3 and et cetera. So we put all this work in. We put this in. I can't remember back then. I mean, was it FedEx? Was it UPS? I don't know how we sent it.
Sure.
But it was by some kind of mail.
Yep.
We put that in, and then we looked at each other and said, well, what do we do now?
Now what?
What do we do? Because there are no clients. What do we do? And so one of my partners said, well, let's go swimming. So we did. His house, he had a swimming pool in the back. And so it was noon. We just went swimming. I mean, it was a funny time because on the one hand, you might think, man, you guys are in dire straits. The world doesn't know who you are yet. No one knows about your ideas. You put massive hopes into this on this really thin little possibility that out of all of these companies, many of whom are super well known, that you're going to get this, and you've channeled months of your time into just building that up. And yet, I'm telling you, there was no despair in the swim. I mean, it was peaceful. It was a great time. I mean, we were happy, we were excited because we just knew. The world didn't know it yet, but the ideas are just too helpful. They're too strong for it not to go.
So did you guys win the contract?
We won the contract. So we got the word back that we made it to the final 3. Funny story on this one. So the other 2, I'm not going to tell you the names of the companies, but if I were, you'd know them both. Almost everyone on this podcast would know both companies. Okay. And then us, no one had heard of at this point. So we learned later that the HR director of this company had told the committee making the decision, I don't care which of these three you choose, so long you don't choose that arbinger, because when this thing doesn't work, I don't want to be blamed for choosing the organization and for them to say, what were you thinking? You chose people no one knows. And so we heard about that later. But we go in and, in fact, so beforehand, so you have each of these three companies had 2 hours to present in front of this group of, say, 15 decision makers or so. And it was a massive culture change initiative for this company. And we were second up. And in the green room, there was nervousness, right, in us. Because, I mean, look, this is where, there's not much in your wallet, much less your bank account. And you're thinking, man, we could really use this contract.
This is make or break.
But you notice what's happening there is we're worrying about ourselves, which is the antithesis of what we're about. So we're about to go in there and give a presentation on an outward mindset, and we're in the green room with an inward mindset, right? And that won't work. And one of my partners, he said, "Look, guys, we're worried right now. We're anxious right now, and we know what that is." So he said, "Look, a couple things." He said, "First of all, we don't know if we're going to get this contract. That's not our decision. Okay? So why worry about that?" He said, "Instead, what if we just focus for the next 2 hours? Our only job is for the next 2 hours to be as helpful as we can be to this group of 15 people as we can be for the next 2 hours. That's the only thing. That's our job. Right? Whether there's a contract or not, who knows? But we can be as helpful as we can be for 2 hours." So that
just control what you can control.
Exactly. And notice the focus. It was a focus on them. Mm-hmm. That's always what brings out the best. And people can sense when you're focused on yourself. They might not be able to totally put their finger on it, but it infects everything. So that comment really reoriented us. I mean, it reoriented us to our own work, which tells us, yeah, that's exactly right. And that gave us grounding and some tools with which to pull that off. So we went in there for the next 2 hours just as helpfully as we could go in to this group, and we ended up getting it.
That's awesome.
And when that HR leader heard that we were awarded it, he was so mad. But he later became one of our facilitators. So he came
around.
Oh yeah, he ended up loving the work when he saw what it actually does, that it actually works. But yeah, those were, I look back at that, and that was a really lean time. But I'm telling you, my memory, though, isn't of it being lean. I mean, that's not my emotional memory of it. Those were exciting days. Yep. I mean, the whole future was ahead of us. We didn't know what it would look like yet, but we had a lot of confidence it was going to be good.
That's awesome. Where can our listeners follow you and follow Arbinger?
So I mean, arbinger.com is a great place to start. ARBINGER.com. All kinds of resources there that people can access, including a whole bunch of videos they can watch. We've got amazing video capability in our organization. One of the things, in fact, I would recommend to folks, we just launched, every year we have what's called the Arbinger Summit, where we have people from all over the world, clients and others come in. And this year we launched what we call the Turn the World Outward Awards. And so every year, so we've awarded the first set this year. The next set will be awarded next June. There's an individual, there's also an organization, and there's a community. So 3 separate awards for turning the world outward. And we produce videos about all of these folks and what they're doing in the world. They're really amazing. So you can access them through arbinger.com. You can also go to turntheworldoutward.org. Okay. And people can watch those videos, see the recipients from last year, and also nominate people for this year and for years upcoming. People organizations that are really doing amazing work in the world. So yeah, I mean, those are a couple places to turn. And then, of course, the books. I mean, Leadership and Self-Deception. This was the first one. The sequel to this
version,
is the old version. Yeah. The sequel to this is called The Anatomy of Peace, which is a fantastic book. It actually picks up on the story. It's connected to the story of this one. It actually goes back in time, but it's a sequel in content, but it's a prequel. We sort of went Star Wars on that one. It's a prequel, Yeah. And that one's really about, that one's more a sort of personal application, personal life, but it crosses over to organizational life as well. Leadership and Self-Deception is really set sort of as organizational application, but as you know, it crosses over into personal life, right? And then the Outward Mindset is the latest one, which is really a super helpful book about, so what do you do about this now? I mean, Leadership and Self-Deception and The Anatomy of Peace are really, in my estimation, fantastic wake you up books. Like, oh my word, I had a problem I didn't know I had. Yep. I was pretty sure other people had it, but I'm not sure I did, right? But
it's all those other people.
It's all those other people. They all need to read this book. But this one, outward mindset's really great about, okay, so now I've been awakened. Maybe I've got some problems I didn't know I had. And this really helps you know, what do you do about
Put
it
it
now?
into practice.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it. Awesome. Anything coming down the pipeline for you guys that you'd like to give a little sneak peek or a little plug?
Well, we are growing at such a pace. It's crazy. One of the exciting things as a company, we're building a new headquarters building. We'll be in next early summer. So that's a big project. It's catalyzing the whole organization. We've also a move we've just made. We have partner organizations around the world who utilize our work, but we've moved directly into Europe as well. We have an office, our own direct office, not through licensee network, but in Germany, servicing all of Europe. And so, I mean, it's really, it's an interesting time for us because in our work around mindset, people are becoming more and more aware that mindset's really an important issue, like a massively important issue. And we just came on the scene kind of at the perfect time for that. And we're seeing more and more in the world as one of the world leaders in that entire space. So all of those things have converged to kind of, it's light a fire under what's happening with our work. It's really exciting times. So we're always developing, we're always innovating. We never want to get stale. And we want to always stay connected to the people we're working with, because that's when you discover that whatever solutions you're bringing to the table right now aren't good enough yet. Right? Because you'll come up to one that's like, okay, how are we going to help you crack this one? And that, you know what it's like, the creative process, the stuff you understand or thought you've understood now explodes into whole new applications. So that's always ongoing. It's exciting.
That's amazing. Well, Jim, we so appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Fantastic being with you.
Thank you for tuning in to From Poop to Gold. I'm Benton Crane, your co-host. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. As entrepreneurs and small businesses, we all kind of reach that point where we know we've created something awesome and we want to share it with the world, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that very next step that can oftentimes be really intimidating or really scary, or you just don't know where to go next, right? And the beautiful thing about this 14-day script challenge is you get your hand held from, okay, you have this cool product, now let's go research and find the exact way to present it and message it to the world in a way that resonates and gets people excited and they're ready to swipe their credit card and purchase. And in the 14-day script challenge, you get the opportunity to go through that step by step with our writers who have done it dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah, you actually watch us go through each of the steps ourselves and create it with a real client, a real product, and it's a real campaign that's out there that's been very successful.
That's right. And the feedback that we've had on this thing has just been phenomenal. I mean, we get comment after comment and emails flowing in from people all over the world who have just raved about the impact that this has had on their business.
People tell us over and over again, it is just a huge value punch for the investment for this 14-day script challenge, and really gave them the tool set they needed to walk through it and make it happen.
And we've had dozens of students who have successfully taken the challenge, written their script, launched their ad campaigns, and driven success for their business. It's pretty amazing.
For more information, go to hbros.co/script. That's hbros.co/script.